All right. I think I might get started now so we can get everything underway, but thanks for coming. I know everyone's in the middle of studying, so we'll keep this fairly brief. We might not go all the way till 3 o'clock, but that all depends on the number of questions we might have. Thanks again for coming. For those of you who I haven't met in person, my name's Katie. I've been the one who's been emailing with you back and forth. So if you have any questions about the short-term process now, before you go, while you're over there, when you come back, I'm your main point of contact here at UQ, so there's my email if you don't already have it. You can also reach me on our generic UQ Abroad email address as well. But we've got a number of resources available for you in addition to this session today and our website. I also sent out a pre-departure guide. It's a PDF. Did anyone not get the pre-departure guide? Show of hands. Pre-departure guide. Okay. So you would have gotten a number of reminder emails about the session today, and that's where the pre-departure guide is actually attached. So a lot of the information that we'll go over in this session is included in the guide. So if you need a refresher while you're overseas or just before you go, it's a good idea to reference the guide as well. It is a PDF, so you can save it on whatever electronic device you're taking with you overseas. So if you do need to make a quick reference while you're overseas, you can do that as well. In some of the emails, I also included the top tips. These are just a brief top 10 tips on helping you to prepare for your short-term experience, so you can have a browse of that as well. Okay, so just as a refresher, I'll go over the stages of application. I know a lot of you are still kind of in different phases. So you would have already applied to UQ Abroad and been confirmed that you're eligible. For anyone who is applying to participate on a program on a 4-credit basis, you should have already received your credit approval from your faculty. We'll talk a little bit more about that if it changes in the future. Acceptance from host. You should have also applied to the host university as well, or host program, and received your acceptance letter. There's a couple people who I still haven't gotten acceptance letters from. When you do get the acceptance letter, you'll want to upload that to the Career Hub application. So just make sure that you do that. If you haven't done that already, send me an email if you can't find the link to Career Hub or you can't access the system. But that's where you'll need to provide your signed conditions of participation form, your travel details, and your host acceptance. So before you go, you'll want to research your options for visas. If you do need any documents from UQ to obtain a visa, make sure you get in touch with me, and I can either direct you to the area on campus that will be able to provide the necessary documentation that you require, or be able to provide a letter for you myself. You'll also want to book your flights, organize accommodation if it's not already organized for you through the program that you're going to, and you'll be notified of scholarship or funding options as well. So then once this has all been completed, you'll leave Australia, go on your experience, and then come back to UQ. So while you're back, just make sure that you have access to Career Hub again. You'll need to log into the system to provide a copy of your transcript if you've applied for credit. If you have not applied for credit, you won't need to provide the transcript for us, but you'll upload a copy of your transcript from your host university to the Career Hub system. I'll review it and then send it off to your faculty. Just keep in mind that a lot of faculties have deadlines as to when they need to receive your transcript in order to grant you credit. So if you're trying to graduate soon after you come back, you want to make sure that you get your transcript as soon as possible and provide it to UQ Abroad so we can start the credit transfer process, which usually takes about 4 weeks. There's also a link on Career Hub to provide a testimonial. So anyone who receives a travel grant is required to provide a testimonial of their experience. Anyone else who hasn't received any funding is welcome to provide a testimonial, and it's just basically our way of learning more about particular programs and helping to promote the programs in the future as well. So by the middle of June, you should have completed your conditions of participation, which you would have. Also uploaded your travel details to Career Hub. I know we're missing a few of those, so keep that in mind. Once your travel details are confirmed, you can upload them to Career Hub and we'll check those off. Also provide a copy of your acceptance letter from your host. And you'll want to make sure that you've researched the student visa options. So if you need a student visa, you're in the process of researching what is required for that and also how long the process is for that. So some countries, it will take up to 90 days to get a student visa. So if you haven't started researching the options for visa, you'll want to do that now. You should have already been notified if you applied for an OS Help loan. Anyone who received a travel grant should have been notified this week. Anyone who's not successful in receiving a travel grant will get an email shortly. If you need a Centerlink letter, you can contact me and we will provide you with a link to complete a Centerlink letter request form. So I'll need that request to come in before I can provide a letter for you that you'll then pass on to Centerlink. In regards to enrollment, students who are participating on a short-term program on an exchange basis, so that would be students going to KAIST, Fudan, or CUHK, you are currently enrolled in exchange codes, so this doesn't happen for anyone else besides those programs. So if you're not enrolled here at UQ in exchange codes, don't worry about that. Everyone for the KAIST, Fudan, and CUHK programs would have been contacted already. Just be sure to read that email. If you do happen to withdraw from the program at a late stage, keep in mind that there are dates that you need to unenroll in those exchange codes from. Okay, so before you go, one thing that you'll want to consider is just signing up for travel alerts. Smart Traveler and DFAT provide regular updates for different countries, so it's a good idea just to sign up for the travel alerts for the country that you'll be in, or if you'll be traveling through different countries, sign up for those as well in case there are any travel alerts that you might not be aware of. That will give you a little bit more information. It's always a good idea to do more research on your host country, host city, if you haven't already. So doing a little search on Google Maps of the area that you'll be staying in, your accommodation, the campus or location of the program is a good way to get a sense of what the lay of the land looks like. And then certainly guidebooks like Lonely Planet and just blogs online are a good resource as well. So in terms of packing, we always get a lot of questions about packing and what do you pack, what do you leave home, but really less is more in terms of packing if you haven't done an extensive international trip yet. So that's always my piece of advice. But if you have any important documents or medication, make sure you make copies of important documents like your passport, credit cards, bank cards. If you need a visa, a copy of your visa, your travel documents, flights, itineraries, things like that. If you're traveling with medication, have copies of your prescription. It may also help to have a copy of your letter from your doctor regarding the prescription. It's a good idea to save these copies in either a cloud drive on a laptop or device. And also keep a hard copy with you as well, separate from the original, just in case anything gets lost while you're overseas. It's usually easier to replace things when you have a copy of what the original looks like. In your hand luggage, I can't recommend enough carrying a change of clothes. Just one change of clothes is usually good enough. If you haven't traveled too much before, you might hear about luggage getting lost. It does happen from time to time. It just happened to me about a month ago, so it's always helpful to have a change of clothes on you, just so that way you're not put out depending on where you are. Chargers and adapters, one thing that a lot of people recommend if you're bringing a number of electronics, laptops, handheld devices, phones, cameras, one thing that people recommend is bringing a power board, so that way you only need one adapter for that power board, so you can plug in a bunch of different electronics without having to buy a number of adapters and chargers along. So another thing is, while the majority of the short-term programs are running anywhere between 2 and 6 weeks, it's probably not a lot of time to get too homesick, but it's still a good idea to bring some things along with you, favorite snacks, foods, pictures from home just to remind you while you're over there so you don't get too homesick. In terms of money, this is always something that we get a lot of questions about, and we'll have a Q&A about this at the end as well, so if anyone has any questions, we can always have a chat after. But money, it's important to keep in mind that cash can be unsafe to carry around with you, or large amounts of cash. So you'll want to keep that in mind with the funds that you'll be thinking about. We always do recommend that you have a number of sources of funds, whether it be cash, bank cards, travel cards, just so that way if something gets lost or stolen or turned off by your bank, you have options to fall back on, so you're not relying on one source of funds. It's always a good idea to create a budget and stick to it. I know that's sometimes a bit difficult. But you'll also want to notify your bank here in Australia that you'll be traveling and using your cards overseas. Even if that's not your primary source of funds, it's still a good idea to let your bank know that you'll be overseas in case you do need to use your Australian bank account while you're over there. They don't shut off your bank card, which can always be pretty sad if that's your only source of funding. Again, if you need a Centrelink letter, please contact me. I can provide one for you, and I'll give you the instructions on how to do that. In terms of health while you're overseas, it's still a good idea to organize a checkup with your regular GP before you go. Even if you're relatively healthy, it is winter here, and people are getting the flu, so you will also be going on a plane, which there's always lots of germs going around, so it's always just a good idea to have a checkup with your doctor because you never know what might come up while you're over there. If you are traveling with any medication, it's a good idea to make sure that you have enough with you to last for the duration of your program, and again, make sure that the prescriptions are valid and you have a letter from your doctor. It's always a good idea just to check that depending on the medication that you're using, that you check with the country that you're going to make sure that it's a legal medication there. If you do have a pre-existing medical condition, you will need to complete a Fit for Travel for UQ Insurance. So it's just a form that you need to complete and disclose your pre-existing condition, and it must be completed 10 days before your departure. So please do keep that in mind if you need to do it. So in regards to insurance, participating on the UQ Abroad Short-Term Global Experiences Program, you are covered by UQ Insurance. In order to be covered, you do need to update your travel details. Again, that's done by Career Hub. All travel must be documented in your travel details, so even if it's not specifically for that program, it's a good idea just to put that travel down. You will be covered 5 days on either side, so 5 days before the start of the program up to 5 days after the program ends. So if you're going to be traveling outside of those dates, you'll want to make sure that you obtain coverage for yourself, health insurance and travel insurance for the period that you're not going to be covered by the UQ Insurance. You may also be required to purchase the insurance from the host university or host program that you're going to. So do keep that in mind as well. You would have probably already been given that information. So once we have your travel details, we'll provide them to the insurance office here at UQ, and then we'll provide you with your travel insurance reference number. So this is the number that you'll want to keep in mind if you do need to make a claim. If you need to make a claim, you should make it immediately. You do have a limited amount of time in which to make a claim, but you will need to provide that travel insurance reference number. There is a pre-travel insurance checklist online on the insurance office's website, but if you have any questions about the insurance, you can always get in touch with the insurance office at this email here. Okay, so when you arrive, most universities will offer a host orientation. Most programs will offer a host orientation, so be sure to attend it. It will provide a lot of really helpful and useful information. You'll also want to update your address in SINET. If you have any issues while you're overseas, contact the host university or host program that you're going through, and also keep UQ Abroad updated as well. It's always good for us to be in the loop. Um, Continue to check your UQ email while you're overseas. If I have anything to get in touch with you about, then I will contact you through that email. But it's always a good idea to think about your just health while you're over there. So give yourself time to settle in. I know it feels like it's a short period of time, and you want to get as much into the short trip as possible, but you're flying pretty far away from most people, so if you haven't experienced jet lag before, it can be pretty unsettling. So just make sure you have enough time to adjust to any time differences that might be significant. Okay, so in terms of courses, make sure that all of the courses that you plan on taking are pre-approved if you're planning on getting credit for them. If the course that you've originally had approved has changed, if the course changes, if the program changes, if the host university has changed the credit weighting, make sure you notify UQ Abroad and also your faculty as soon as possible. This could have an effect on the credit that you receive when you come back, so just make sure you keep us in the loop, and also your faculty. Again, anyone who's going on the Fudan program, CUHK, or KAIST, you will have been enrolled and exchange codes, and you'll see that if you log into SciNet, based on the number of credits that you've been approved for. Once you've completed your program, again, you'll want to update it to Career Hub. Just log into the system and upload a scanned copy of it. I can't accept photos, unfortunately, so just make sure you have an appropriately scanned copy of it. Some host programs will actually mail your transcript to UQ Abroad, so just make sure that the address is correct. For those of you who are aware, UQ Abroad has actually physically moved, so our mailing address is the UQ Advantage office, which is in Building 17, Room 108. So if your host university needs an address to send your transcript, be sure to provide them with this address. Otherwise, it could get lost on campus, and it could cause delays in getting your credit transferred. Okay, so while you're overseas, you are still representing UQ, so we want to make sure that you're the best UQ student and representative while you're over there. You must still abide by the UQ Student Charter and other relevant student policies. So it's important to keep in mind that you have to respect the host university, host country, their policy, their academic processes, their students, etc. So please do keep that in mind. It is a good idea to share your experience as well. I know I mentioned a little bit about the testimonials that we'll ask you for at the end of your program, but it's also a great way to keep in touch with home without having to really keep in touch with everyone in your network. Keeping a diary, journal, or blog, if you're happy to share that with UQ so we can have a sense of what the experience is like for you, that'd be great. Everyone is probably going to be taking pictures while you're over there. We love to see photos. We often use them in our promotional material. If you've seen some of the photos that are in these slides, they have been provided to us from students. So while you're taking photos, while you're over there, remember to tag UQ Advantage with hashtag UQ Abroad, and we might end up using your photo in one of our publications. So it's always a good idea to also reflect on the experience. Even though it's a fairly short amount of time, it still can have quite a big influence on you academically, personally, professionally. So we want you to think about that while you're over there and when you come back as well. And that will also be built into your testimonial too. So it's always good for us to hear what an influence your short-term program had on you, whether it's personal, academic, professional. So please do be sure to complete a testimonial online. So you may have heard more about employability at UQ. It is a big project that the university is focusing on. One of the important things about giving yourself a bit more to think about in terms of employability is short-term programs, what international experiences can do for your employability in terms of the soft skills that you'll develop by going overseas and participating on a short-term global experience. So that's something else we want you to think about while you're over there. Just how this particular program and this experience that you're going to go on is going to influence your employability and further enhance your UQ degree. So that is basically it for the majority of the informational part of this session. I will open it up to questions if anyone has any specific questions.